I will not beg for what is already mine. I need to sit with that sentence for a moment before I go any further, because it carries something in it that I have needed to hear for a very long time. I will not beg. I will not plead. I will not approach the throne of divine abundance with my hat in my hand and my eyes on the floor and my voice reduced to a whisper by the weight of all the times I have asked and waited and asked again and wondered whether I was asking too much, or asking in the wrong way, or simply not worthy enough of the thing I was asking for. That posture is over. Not because I have become arrogant, not because I have forgotten who God is or what grace means, but because I have finally understood something that changes everything. What I have been begging for was never withheld from me because I had not begged sufficiently. It was never held behind a door that opened only when my desperation reached a certain level. It was already mine. It has always been mine. And today, I stop begging for my own inheritance, and I simply claim it. I claim it with a quiet, trembling, deeply grateful heart. I claim it by divine right. I claim it now. I want to speak honestly about what begging feels like, because I think many people who will hear this declaration know that feeling intimately. Begging feels like smallness. It feels like standing outside a house that has your name on the deed, but convincing yourself somehow that you need permission from a stranger to go inside. It feels like approaching the very thing that was prepared for you with your hands pressed together and your voice pitched low and your spirit already braced for the possibility of no. Begging feels like you have already decided, before you even ask, that you probably do not deserve it, that the abundance is real but perhaps not for someone like you, that the promise is true but you are the fine print exception, the asterisk at the bottom of the page, where the blessing becomes conditional. I know that feeling. I have lived in that feeling. I have prayed from that feeling more times than I want to count. And today, with every word of this declaration, I am walking out of that feeling and into truth. The truth is, I am not a beggar at the door of divine abundance. I am a child of God at the table of divine inheritance, and children do not beg for what their Father has already given them. They simply reach out their hands and receive. There is a story in the ancient text about a son who left home, who took his inheritance early and spent it all, and found himself starving in a foreign land. And when he came to his senses, he rose and returned to his father. But before he could finish the speech he had rehearsed, before he could complete the carefully worded request for mercy that he had been practicing on the long walk home, his father saw him from a great distance and ran. The father ran. He did not wait for the son to finish begging. He did not make the son grovel through the full speech of unworthiness. He ran, and he embraced him, and he called for the robe and the ring and the feast. And I want to sit in that story today because it is my story. I am the one who has been rehearsing speeches of unworthiness on the long walk back to the source. I am the one who has been planning exactly how to ask, exactly what to say, exactly how much to acknowledge my own failures before I dare to mention what I need. And the Father, my divine source, has been running toward me this whole time. The robe is already in his hands. The ring is already on its way to my finger. The feast is already being prepared. I do not need to finish my speech of begging. I only need to receive. So I receive now. I receive with the simplicity of a child who does not need to earn what love gives freely. I receive the abundance that was prepared for me before I was formed. I receive the supply that has been held in divine trust through every season of my wandering and my striving and my misunderstanding of how this all works. I receive the financial blessing, the overflowing provision, the more than enough that was never contingent on my perfection or my performance or my persistence in prayer, but was contingent only on my willingness to say yes and to open my hands and to believe that what the Father has declared is true. I receive it now without qualification, without apology, without the small voice that says, but maybe not this much, but maybe not this specific thing, but maybe I need to wait a little longer to be sure I have earned it. I am done qualifying my receiving. I receive everything that belongs to this season of my life fully and freely and right now. I want to speak now to the years of begging, not with anger toward myself, Not with regret that curdles into self-condemnation. With tenderness. With the soft compassion I would offer a dear friend who had been struggling unnecessarily, who had been working so hard at something that was never supposed to require that kind of effort. I look back at the years of pleading, the years of asking the same prayers with increasing desperation, the years of adding more fasting and more crying and more confession to the same request, as though the problem was in the volume or the fervency or the purity of the asking. And I want to hold that person gently and say, you were never begging from the right posture. Not because you were wrong to ask, not because the prayers were wasted, but because you were standing at a door you already had the key to, knocking with your knuckles bleeding when the key was in your hand the whole time. The key was faith. The key was the understanding that you were already an heir and not a beggar. The key was the truth that the Father's house was already your home. You had it all along, and today you finally use it. I claim my divine inheritance now. I speak these words carefully and deliberately because claiming is different from begging, and I want to understand the difference in the depths of my spirit. Begging asks from outside. Claiming receives from inside. Begging positions itself as one who may or may not be approved. Claiming positions itself as one who is already approved, already included, already written into the will, already named in the decree. When I claim something, I am not making a new request. I am acknowledging an existing reality. I am bringing into the visible world what is already established in the invisible. I am reaching into the spiritual realm where my abundance already exists in full measure, and I am drawing it through into the natural realm where I live and breathe and pay bills and dream and struggle and hope. Claiming is the action of faith that bridges the invisible and the visible, and I am claiming everything that belongs to me now, every provision, every promise, every blessing that was written over my life before the world began. I claim it now by divine right. My divine right is not something I earned. This is something I need to say clearly, because there is a version of this declaration that sounds like pride, and I want to make sure this is not that. My divine right is not based on my accomplishments. It is not based on how well I have obeyed, or how consistently I have prayed, or how generously I have given, or how much I have suffered, or how long I have waited. My divine right is based entirely on the covenant, on the love of a God who decided before I ever drew a breath that I would be his child, and that as his child, everything he has would be made available to me. It is based on grace, unearned, undeserved, freely given, lavishly offered grace. I did not qualify for this inheritance through effort. I received it through relationship. And the relationship was initiated not by me, but by the God who chose me before I chose him. I stand in that covenant today. I stand in that grace. And from that standing, I claim what is already mine. Not arrogantly, tenderly, humbly, with tears in my eyes at the realization that I was loved this much all along. I speak now to the specific things I have been begging for, the financial stability that has felt perpetually just out of reach, the freedom from debt that I have prayed for through so many sleepless nights, the provision that would allow me to stop calculating and start living, to stop surviving and start thriving, to stop looking at every expense as a threat and start seeing my resources as the generous outworking of a generous God. I have begged for these things. I have asked for them in faith and in doubt and in tears and in silence and in the kind of weary repetition that knows it is still praying but has begun to lose the sense of whether anything is listening. And today, I stop begging for every single one of these things, and I claim them instead. I claim financial stability as my portion. I claim freedom from debt as my inheritance. I claim the provision that makes calculation unnecessary and generosity natural. I claim rest from the exhaustion of financial fear. I claim all of it now by divine right, with a quiet and trembling certainty that this is how it was always supposed to work, and I am only just now arriving at the understanding that was waiting for me all along. There is something that happens in my body when I shift from begging to claiming, something physical and real. The shoulders come down. The chest opens. The breath that has been shallow and constricted for so long begins to deepen. There is a release of tension that I did not even fully realize I was carrying because I had been carrying it for so long that it felt like my natural state. The tension of one who is always asking and never quite sure of the answer. The tightness of one who has been approved and denied so many times that the act of asking itself has become freighted with dread. When I claim rather than beg, when I shift from the posture of the supplicant to the posture of the heir, something in my body knows the difference before my mind fully catches up. Something deep in my physical self recognizes the truth of what I am declaring even before the circumstances have changed. I let that recognition happen now. I let my body receive the truth that my inheritance is already mine. I let my shoulders drop. I let my chest open. I let my breath come deep and full and unhurried. I am an heir. I am claiming my inheritance. I am at peace. I want to speak to the moments when I almost gave up. The moments when the begging felt so futile, and the silence felt so heavy, and the distance between what I was declaring and what I was experiencing felt so vast, that the thought came quietly, maybe this is not for you. Maybe you are the exception. Maybe your situation is genuinely different from all the testimonies you have heard and all the promises you have claimed. I want to speak to those moments now, because they were the truest tests of whether I would stay or leave, whether I would hold on or let go, whether faith in me was something that persisted through the dark or only visited in the light. Those moments were not evidence that the promise was false. They were the very crucible in which the kind of faith was being formed that would know what to do with the inheritance when it arrived. They were the nights that would make the morning indescribably sweet. They were the hunger that would make the feast taste like nothing else ever had. I honor every one of those moments now. I give thanks for every one of them. And I declare that every moment I almost gave up was a moment I did not give up, and that persistence is part of the testimony that will bless many people who are in their own almost gave up moment right now. God was not silent in those moments. I need to say this because there is a grief that comes from believing that the silence meant indifference. God was not indifferent. God was not slow. God was not withholding cruelly or testing harshly or watching me struggle from a comfortable distance without compassion. In every moment that felt like silence, there was actually preparation. There was work being done in the invisible that the visible world had not yet caught up to. There were doors being unlocked that had not yet swung open. There were resources being positioned that had not yet arrived. There were people being moved into place in a divine arrangement that was more intricate and more precisely timed than anything I could have orchestrated through my own effort. The silence was not emptiness. The silence was the sound of God working in ways I could not hear. And now, the working is complete, and the silence is breaking open into the sound of answered prayer and received inheritance, and the specific and personal and undeniably divinely arranged evidence of a love that was faithful through every moment I doubted it. I now declare the specific inheritance that is mine by divine right. My inheritance includes freedom. Freedom from financial fear, from the grip of anxiety about money, from the exhausting vigilance of one who is always watching the numbers and dreading what they might say. That freedom is mine. I claim it. My inheritance includes dignity. The dignity of being able to provide for the people I love without shame, without the humiliation of not enough, without the weight of being unable to meet the needs of those whose well-being has been entrusted to my care. That dignity is mine. I claim it. My inheritance includes generosity, the ability to give without calculating whether I can afford to bless without measuring what it costs me, to be the one who helps rather than the one who needs help. That generosity is mine. I claim it. My inheritance includes rest, the deep, unhurried, unanxious rest of one who knows that their provision is secured, not by their own frantic effort, but by the faithfulness of a divine source that never sleeps and never runs dry. That rest is mine. I claim it. Freedom, dignity, generosity, rest. These are my inheritance. I claim them all by divine right now, in this moment of declaration. I speak now to every delay that has stood between me and the manifestation of my inheritance. I speak to it without bitterness and without confusion, and without the desperate need to understand exactly why it happened and how long it was truly necessary. I simply speak to it and say, "Your season is complete." Whatever you were doing in me through the waiting, whatever was being formed and shaped and deepened and made ready, that work is done. The preparation is complete, the soil is ready, the vessel is prepared. The heir is mature enough in faith to receive what the delay was protecting them for. And now, the delay lifts. Now the obstruction clears. Now what was held in the invisible presses through into the visible with a force and a tenderness and a beautiful specificity that will make me understand in an instant why every single day of waiting was completely and perfectly worth it. I am not the person who will receive this inheritance and waste it. I want to declare this clearly from the depths of a heart that has been formed through difficulty into faithfulness. I am not the person who will receive abundance and forget the source. I am not the person who will receive overflow and stop being grateful. I am not the person who will receive financial freedom and lose the compassion that came from knowing what it felt like to be without. The waiting made me something. The begging years, as painful as they were, built something in me that prosperity alone could never have built. They built a gratitude that is not surface level. They built a generosity that comes from remembering. They built a testimony that is specific enough and real enough and costly enough to actually reach the hearts of people who are in the same place I once was. I receive my inheritance as the person the waiting made me. I receive it with open hands and a faithful heart and the deep settled intention to steward it in a way that honors every prayer that was prayed over every difficult season that led to this moment. I close this declaration with the simplest and most profound statement I know how to make. I am loved. Completely. Without condition, without diminishment, without the fine print exceptions I spent years looking for in the margins of divine promise. I am loved by a God who prepared my inheritance before I existed, who held it faithfully through every season of my wandering and my striving and my begging, who ran toward me while I was still practicing my speech of unworthiness, who put the robe on my shoulders before I could finish my confession. I am loved. And the inheritance I am claiming today is not primarily financial, though it includes that fully. The inheritance I am claiming is the full and unhurried and unashamed life of a beloved child who knows they are loved, who knows what they have been given, who knows where they stand, and who will never stand in the posture of a beggar at the door of their own home again. I am home. I am loved. I am claiming my inheritance. I will not beg for what is already mine. I claim it by divine right. I claim it now. I give thanks. With my whole heart and my whole spirit and every part of me that has waited and hoped and doubted and held on and almost let go and held on again, I give thanks for the inheritance. I give thanks for the love. I give thanks for the preparation. I give thanks for the grace that was there in every moment. I could not feel it. I give thanks for the robe and the ring and the feast that are even now being prepared. I give thanks for this moment of clarity in which I finally understand that I was never a beggar. I was always an heir. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. There is a verse that has lived in my spirit for a long time and that speaks directly into the heart of what I am declaring today. It says that the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, children. Not employees, not applicants, not visitors who need to reapply every morning for access to the grace that was already given, children, and if children then heirs. Heirs of God, and joint heirs with the one whose inheritance includes everything. That word heir is doing something in me right now that I need to let it do completely. An heir does not petition for their inheritance. An heir receives it. An heir does not grovel before the will to see if their name is included. An heir knows their name is there. An heir does not question whether the estate is real or whether the promise of it was sincere or whether the one who made the will has changed their mind. An heir simply comes of age and receives what was always prepared for them. I have come of age in my faith, not perfectly, not without the bruises of the years of misunderstanding, but truly. I understand now what I did not understand before. I am an heir. My name is in the will. The estate is real. and today, I receive what was always prepared for me. I want to speak tenderly to the shame that has attached itself to financial struggle, because one of the cruelest dimensions of financial difficulty is not the difficulty itself, but the shame that shadows it. The shame that whispers you should be further along by now. The shame that says if you were more disciplined, more faithful, more spiritually mature, you would not be in this situation. The shame that makes people hide their financial reality from the people around them, that makes them smile and say, "I am fine," when inside every conversation about money feels like a small humiliation. I want to speak directly to that shame now, and I want to say clearly, and with all the gentleness I possess, this shame is a lie. Financial struggle is not a verdict on your worth. It is not evidence of spiritual failure. It is not proof that you are loved less than those whose finances appear more ordered. Some of the most faithful people who have ever walked this earth have walked through profound financial difficulty, and the difficulty was not their punishment, it was their classroom. It was the very crucible in which God was forming the specific shape of faith and character and compassion that their particular life and testimony required. The shame is a lie. Put it down. You are not your financial situation. You are the beloved child of a generous God, and your situation is changing. I now speak life into every financial dream that shame caused me to stop dreaming. The dreams I quietly let go of because they began to feel embarrassing in the light of circumstances that seemed to contradict them completely. The dream of owning a home that felt truly secure and genuinely mine. The dream of a savings account that grew rather than shrank, that represented security rather than anxiety. The dream of my children being able to say without hesitation that their parents provided well, that they grew up in abundance and not in lack, that the financial story of the family changed in their generation. The dream of retiring without fear. The dream of giving so extravagantly that it moved people to tears. The dream of being the one in the family that others can call when they are in need and knowing with certainty that I have something to give. I pick those dreams back up now. I dust them off. I hold them in my hands, and I look at them clearly, and I declare they are not too large for the God who gave them to me. They were always part of the inheritance. They were always included in what was prepared. I claim them now with every bit of faith I have, and I plant them again in the ground of divine law, where they will grow into the harvest that was always their destiny. I speak now to my future self. The version of me who is standing on the other side of this declaration, with the inheritance fully manifest, with the financial freedom fully real, with the testimony fully formed and ready to be told. I speak to that version of me now, and I want to say, thank you for holding on. Thank you for making this declaration on this day, even when everything in the natural world gave you 100 reasons not to. Thank you for choosing to believe one more time. Thank you for putting down the posture of the beggar and picking up the posture of the heir. The road from here to there is shorter than fear would have you believe. The gap between this declaration and your full manifestation is being closed right now by the divine law that was activated the moment you chose to claim rather than beg. You will get there. You will stand there. You will hold the evidence in your hands. And when you do, you will remember this moment and you will understand that this was the turning point. This was the declaration that changed everything. This was the day you finally stopped begging for what was already yours. My worth is not negotiable. I want to declare this because one of the deepest roots of the begging posture is the unconscious belief that my worth is something that must be constantly established, constantly proven, constantly re-earned in the eyes of the divine before the blessing can flow. As though God is always on the edge of changing his mind about me. As though the inheritance is conditional on my continued performance. As though love this deep could be lost through ordinary human failure. My worth is not negotiable. It was established before I was born by the one who made me. It has not been diminished by my mistakes. It has not been reduced by my failures. It has not been affected by the seasons of doubt or the moments of giving up or the times I spoke words of lack over my own life that contradicted everything I believed. My worth is intact. My inheritance is intact. The love that prepared it is intact. None of it was ever actually in the danger I feared it was in. I was always loved. I was always an heir. The door was always open. I simply needed to stop knocking and walk in. I now speak a blessing over every person who is hearing this declaration and who recognizes themselves in it. Every person who has been begging for what is already theirs without knowing that was what they were doing. Every person who has approached divine abundance with the posture of a beggar when they were always already an heir. Every person who has let shame quiet their dreams and shrink their requests and reduce their expectations to a level that felt safe enough that the disappointment of not receiving would not be too devastating. I speak over every one of those people now. You are an heir, not a beggar. Your inheritance is real, and it is prepared, and it has your name on it. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to deserve it by any standard other than the one that was established before you were born, which is simply that you are loved. Receive it, open your hands, say yes. Stop begging for what is already yours, and claim it by divine right. Claim it now. It is waiting for exactly this posture, this understanding, this single profound shift from begging to receiving that changes everything. I breathe now, I breathe in peace, and I breathe out the years of anxious asking. I breathe in the truth of my inheritance, and I breathe out the lie of my unworthiness. I breathe in the love that prepared this abundance for me, and I breathe out every agreement I ever made with the voice that said it might not be for me. I breathe in the settled, unhurried, deeply peaceful reality of one who is claimed and loved and provided for, and I breathe out the constricted, anxious breath of one who has been begging. This breath, this moment, this shift, it is the beginning of everything changing. Not because of what I have done, but because of what I have finally understood. I am an heir. I am loved. I am claiming what is already mine. And I will never stand in the posture of the beggar again, not because I have become proud, but because I have become truthful about who I am and whose I am and what has always been prepared for me in the heart of the God who runs toward me while I am still a long way off. The inheritance is mine. The provision is mine. The abundance is mine. The freedom is mine. The rest is mine. The dignity is mine. The generosity is mine. The testimony is mine. The future is mine. All of it. Every bit of it. Prepared by love, secured by covenant, held in divine trust through every season of waiting, and released now into the hands of the one who finally stopped begging and started claiming. That one is me. I am that one. I claim it all now, by divine right, with a full heart, with trembling, grateful hands, with tears that are not tears of desperation but tears of the deepest homecoming. I claim it now. I will not beg for what is already mine. I claim it by divine right, now. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. There is a difference between the prayer of petition and the prayer of possession, and I want to sit with that difference carefully, because understanding it is what transforms begging into claiming. The prayer of petition says, God, I am asking you to give me this thing which you may or may not choose to give. The prayer of possession says, God, I receive this thing which you have already given, and I thank you for it. The prayer of petition operates from the outside looking in. The prayer of possession operates from the inside, already dwelling in the truth of what has been declared. I have spent most of my spiritual life in petition, asking, requesting, presenting my case, making arguments for why I deserve or need or have waited long enough for what I was asking. And there is nothing wrong with petition. But today, I am graduating from petition into possession. Today, I am moving from asking for what might be given into receiving what has already been prepared. The inheritance is not something I am petitioning God to create for me. It is something He already created for me before the world began. I am not asking Him to decide in my favor. I am receiving the decision He already made before I was born. That shift from petition to possession is the most important spiritual move I will make today, and I make it now with my whole heart. I want to speak about what it means to live from the inside out rather than from the outside in. Most people who are waiting for financial breakthrough are living from the outside in. They are watching their circumstances and allowing those circumstances to tell them who they are and what is possible and whether the declarations they are making are working. When the circumstances do not shift quickly enough, they pull back their faith. When the numbers do not improve on the expected timeline, they begin to doubt the law. When the breakthrough takes longer than they wanted, they start to wonder whether they misunderstood the promise. Living from the outside in means the circumstances always have the last word. But living from the inside out means the inner truth always has the last word. It means, I know who I am and what I have, regardless of what the circumstances are currently reporting. It means my inheritance is real in my spirit before it is real in my bank account, and I do not require the bank account to change before I believe the inheritance. I live from the inside out now. I know what is mine. The circumstances are catching up to the truth. They are always catching up to the truth when the truth is established inside before it appears outside. My circumstances are catching up right now. The outer world is conforming to the inner truth. My inheritance is pressing through from the invisible into the visible, and I hold my posture of the heir while it arrives. I now make a declaration that I will return to every single morning from this day forward. It is simple, it is short, and it is the most powerful reorientation I can make at the start of each new day. I am a child of God. I am an heir of divine abundance. I will not beg for what is already mine. I receive my inheritance today by divine right. That is the declaration. 4 sentences. Spoken every morning before the day has had a chance to present its arguments for limitation and lack. Spoken before the bills arrive, and the numbers speak, and the circumstances begin their familiar narrative of not enough. Spoken first. Spoken clearly. Spoken from the settled knowing of one who has graduated from begging to claiming, and who will not go back. Those 4 sentences, spoken consistently, and believed deeply, and acted on faithfully, will rewrite the financial story of my life, one morning at a time. I commit to them now. I plant them as seeds in the soil of my daily spiritual practice, and I watch them grow into the harvest of a financial life that is free and full and overflowing with the evidence of divine faithfulness. There is one more thing I want to say before I close this declaration, and it is the most tender thing of all. God has been waiting for this moment. Not in the way a creditor waits for payment. Not in the way a disappointed parent waits for a prodigal child to finally get it together. In the way a father waits when his beloved child is running a long, unnecessary race to prove they deserve what was freely given from the beginning. God has been watching me beg for my own inheritance, and every begging prayer was received with love and answered with patience and met with a compassion so vast I cannot fully comprehend it. But I believe with everything in me that there is a particular joy in heaven today when a person finally understands. When a person finally stops running the unnecessary race. When a person lays down the posture of the beggar and picks up the identity of the heir. I believe the Father celebrates that moment. I believe it is the robe and the ring and the feast moment. And if that is true, then today in my life, there is a celebration happening in the invisible that I cannot hear, but that is absolutely real. A celebration of the moment I stopped begging and started claiming. A celebration of the child who finally came home. I receive that celebration. I let it be real. I let it be mine. I will not beg for what is already mine. I claim it by divine right, now and forever. And so it is. I want to speak one final time to the money that belongs to me. Not with the commanding energy of yesterday's declaration. Today I speak to it tenderly, the way you speak to something that has been lost and is now being welcomed home. Money that is mine by divine inheritance. I see you now for what you truly are. You are not the enemy I was taught to be suspicious of. You are not the master I was afraid of serving. You are not the reward I had to earn through suffering or the prize I had to compete for through striving. You are simply the natural expression of the abundance of a God who lacks nothing and who prepared everything I need for the life He designed for me. You are provision. You are the practical outworking of divine love in the material world, and I welcome you now as that. I welcome you not with grasping, but with receiving. Not with fear, but with gratitude. Not with the desperation of one who has been without, but with the peace of one who finally knows they were never truly without a source. Come into my life now, as the provision you were always designed to be. Come as the evidence of love. Come as the expression of inheritance. Come into the hands of one who will use you well, give you freely, save you wisely, multiply you faithfully, and never forget where you came from, or who made it possible for you to be here. Come. I receive you. I am grateful for you, and I will not beg for you again, because you are already mine. And to the God who prepared all of this, to the Father who ran, to the love that held the robe and the ring through every season of my wandering, to the faithfulness that never failed even when my faith wavered and my prayers dried up and my declarations became barely whispered through exhaustion, to the grace that kept the inheritance intact through every mistake and every failure and every moment I almost gave up, to the patience that waited for this exact day, this exact declaration, this exact moment of understanding when I would finally stop begging and start claiming. Thank you. From the deepest and most grateful place in my spirit, thank you. I do not have words adequate to the gratitude. I only have this declaration, and this choosing, and this claiming, and this finally coming home to the truth of who I am and what I have been given. I am yours. I am loved. I am an heir. And I will live the rest of my life from that truth. I will not beg for what is already mine. I claim it by divine right. Now. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is.